Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome. And I have to say, guys, I am very pleased to have Karen Ross on the show today. And Karen is a hypnotherapist and coach to adults and children suffering from anxiety, overwhelm, and fear. Hi, Karen. It's great to have you, and it's great to meet you.
Hi, Mark. Feeling is the same here. I'm honored to be here. I've heard great things about you and your podcast, so thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome. And I believe it was Joel Solomon, who has also been a guest on the show, another real difference maker in the world, that had introduced us. And I'm remembering back now, because I'm booked out a few months in advance, I'm remembering back now that you had offered to have a conversation. I was like, why don't we just get to know each other on camera, right? So, and we can do that because you're a referral from Joel, and Joel wouldn't refer you if you weren't somebody who was inspired and inspiring. And so it is absolutely lovely to have you. And just in the few minutes that I spent today trying to get a sense of who you were and looking up online and things like that, I can tell a lot of who you are and what you're about. But for our audience, I always like to start with, what's your story? How did you become a hypnotherapist, and why are you doing it?
Well, it's a long story that I'll try to make as concise as possible.
Sure.
And when I do talk about my background, I tend to refer to it as having a portfolio career, because I've done so many different things. And some of them have included my late husband and I were headhunters. We did executive search, very senior level positions. And that was a great way to meet people and get to know people and just really get inside the individual to be able to recommend them for a senior level position. Over the years, I've done some sales and marketing, and just prior to the work I'm doing now, I had a radio show for about 10 years here in Chicago, and then again in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. I was on the air for about a year, and I love the media. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that show, and the concept of the show was interviewing authors of nonfiction books, and specifically books that, as you were mentioning, were meant to inspire people. We're meant to give them some information that would help enhance their life, make their life better. So when that part of my career came to an end, I was really at a crossroads and not sure exactly what to do. I had come back to Chicago by then, and realized I was a true Midwesterner, and so I needed to be back here, and I'm glad I made that move. But coaching was just becoming known, accepted, understood, and so I hired a coach to help guide me. And that individual was the one who guided me into the coaching profession. And so that's where what I'm doing now started about 12, 13 years ago, and did the coaching for quite a while. But about 5 years ago, I was introduced to a program called Rapid Transformational Therapy, which is based on hypnosis. And the word that attracted me to that was rapid. And even though my father was a therapist, he was a psychologist, and so he did long-term therapy with many, many people. So I certainly don't disparage that. But I also recognize that there are parts or areas of our life that we don't need to be in therapy for months and years, that there's a process that we can make change fairly quickly. And if that's preferable to someone, I can help them do that now. And so I've just gone on to take other classes and learn different approaches, all of them, though, pretty much hypnosis based, because it's just so valuable once people understand the power of their subconscious mind, and hypnosis being the way to reach it. So that kind of brings us to today, and love what I'm doing and having the opportunity to impact people and help them make the changes they want to make.
Terrific. And as somebody who also came to coaching after a portfolio of careers, I completely get it. And, so from that perspective, and one of the topics that we wanted to kind of get, or I wanted to kind of get into today, was the concept of having two separate minds, and the fact that we all have that. And maybe you could tell us about, how that is, and why we need to know the difference between our two minds.
Sure. And I think most people, if they stop to think about it, recognize that they do have two different minds. But most of us are functioning in a way that our subconscious mind has almost been hijacked by our conscious mind. Our conscious mind, on one hand, can receive, accept, ignore, argue with all of the information that comes into it. And on the other hand, the subconscious mind does not do that. It is not a thinking mind. It doesn't think between the lines. It doesn't judge. Whereas the conscious mind is, with most of us, I think we'll admit that our conscious mind never shuts up. And it can be pretty nasty sometimes. I mean, it can really be pretty harsh, because it tends to judge both ourselves and others and situations. And the subconscious mind doesn't do that. It just accepts information. Consequently, it benefits us to feed good information to our subconscious mind, because it's really through our conscious mind that the subconscious receives. And in addition to receiving new information, it is a wealth of information. It has in there everything we've gone through. And fortunately, it's there to tell us what might have happened in the past to cause us to form a belief that no longer serves us. And yet we've been functioning under that belief for years and years, sometimes what might seem a lifetime. So once people understand the power of their subconscious mind and learn ways to access it, it's a real life changer.
Absolutely, it can be. And I also wanted to ask, what is hypnosis and how does it work, within the context of, from my own experience, the first time I was hypnotized, it turned out to be, well, first of all, I really needed to trust the person that hypnotized me. But it was entirely different, even as I was going through it, than I had ever conceived of. I had all of the old television shows, or people that get up on stage and quote, hypnotize you or make suggestions and have you do crazy things and stuff like that. And it was nothing like that at all. As a matter of fact, it was completely present, completely in control of what was happening. And it was just a series of questions and allowing me to really reach a deeper place for myself. And very relaxing, not threatening in any way. But how would you define hypnosis?
No, you just did. You did. You did it just perfectly, beautifully. And it's always nice when someone has had the experience and speaks about it in that way. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, most people will say, and I do ask that question if I'm doing a presentation or in a situation, I ask people, what is your understanding of or knowledge about or experience with hypnosis? And most of them say just what I've seen on TV or in movies. And as you pointed out, that's a real misrepresentation of true hypnosis and the value that it can be. But the words you used were perfect. It is a state of deep relaxation. I don't think I've ever done a session with somebody that at the end they say, "Oh my God, I've never been that relaxed before." And so that it truly is one of the main things. But in addition to being fully relaxed, you're fully aware. Your subconscious mind is open, so there is a heightened awareness, a heightened sense of focus. And as you also pointed out, you do not lose control. You are in total control at all times. Um, I've heard people say, "Well, I don't want to get lost in a trance, and I can't get out." That's not what happens. That's not what happens. And I even tell people, I do all my sessions on Zoom, and I say, if something happens and we lose our internet connection or whatever, not to be concerned. Just take a deep breath. We'll both come back on and pick up right where we left off. So that just proves that you're in total control, and you can respond to anything that might happen. I ask people
Right.
to be
Right.
situated where they won't be disturbed, but something can always happen, and if you need to respond to that, you certainly can.
Terrific. And I would add that just as you're speaking, because I'm thinking back to, the sessions that I had, and for me, it was like opening a pathway. It allowed me to, one, be aware of what my subconscious, what was there. I'm going to say what was thinking, but that's not really the same thinking that we have when we think of our conscious mind. But it opened the pathway for the conscious mind to be aware of the subconscious, which it seems like so much of our consciousness is trying to suppress or hijack or set aside or ignore our subconscious.
Right.
And in my case, there was some losses in life that I just hadn't processed. I hadn't finished processing, and that became very present, but not in a threatening way. It was just that there was mourning to be done, and I needed to do it. And anyway, it was transformational for me, by the way. So it was
Glad to hear that.
yeah, absolutely terrific.
Glad to hear that.
But when you're working with a person, when you have somebody whom you're using hypnosis with, how does it help?
Well, again, you're you're a terrific interviewer because you know exactly what to say, and I love the use of the word pathway. It provides a pathway to healing. I mean, that's
Mm,
how I like to think of it.
yeah.
And healing could be an emotional healing. It
Hmm.
could be healing of a faulty belief. I mentioned, beliefs are in there that when people or see where they formed a belief about something, and then they recognize, well, I don't need to believe that. I may have believed that at the age of 8 or 13 or, whatever. And at that time, it may have been very beneficial. It may
Right.
have been protecting them emotionally or mentally or whatever. But if they continued to hold that belief and use it as a filter for other things happening in their life, it just maybe screwed things up that didn't need to be messed up. And if they knew that belief was at the fundamental, basis of it, and that they could change that belief so quickly. Um, you said something else that I wanted to, pathway to healing. I just wanted to make the point that healing could be emotional, could be mental, could be physical.
Yeah.
I have people come to me who are experiencing physical chronic pain that doctors have either said, we don't know what it is, just learn to live with it. It's a part of the aging process. all kinds of messages that I think are just terrible, because we're putting that belief into our subconscious that, I'm getting old, so therefore I should have this pain. No, no. So we can deal with that also and create physical healing. And sometimes it's changing perception about pain and belief about how a physical pain is impacting us. We can shift that, make it different, and consequently the pain can be relieved.
So awesome. I have so many things going through my mind. We could take this in so many different directions at once, but for me, I did want to bring up something, a realization that I had, not necessarily to do with the specific hypnotherapy sessions that I had, but the whole concept of belief. I had, as a younger man, thought that belief was right and wrong, that there was a way to believe, and you needed to find the right belief, not
Right.
that belief was a choice.
Ah,
And
interesting.
so I don't know how many other people may experience that, but it was absolutely transformational in my life when I realized that belief was a choice, that I was literally choosing to believe whatever it was that I was believing. And all that it takes to change a belief is to realize that it's a choice, and that to make a different choice.
Make a different choice. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I
um,
remember talking to somebody one time, and they were getting ready to do some uh, medical treatment and had been told that there was a specific side effect to that treatment. And it was a pretty serious side effect. And I made the statement. I said, well, I don't believe that has to happen. And that person said, well, I do.
mm.
And I said, well, then it will.
And right there is the power of the subconscious mind
Absolutely.
at its
Absolutely.
best, because you're literally highlighting the fact that our lives are what we believe it is.
Right.
And
Right.
if we want to have a different path in life, we just need to believe that it's possible,
Yeah.
and then to work towards it. Right. So
Do you mind if I have a little experiment that I do with people,
sure,
certainly in presentations, and it just takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
sure,
Do you think your listeners might enjoy that?
absolutely.
So, and you might too. Maybe you've already been through this. You know this world so well. I love it. I love it. But yeah, just get relaxed. Just be very, very relaxed. And you did the right thing. You closed your eyes. You took a deep breath. And I want you to picture you're standing at your kitchen counter.
Okay.
And on the counter is a large, plump, bright yellow lemon.
Mm,
Sitting next to it is a cutting board and a very sharp knife.
okay.
So now just pick up the lemon with your non dominant hand,
Okay.
place it on the cutting board. And when you pick up the lemon and you squeeze it ever so slightly, you notice that it has some give to it. That tells you that it is full of juice. So lay that lemon down on the cutting board and with that very sharp knife, just easily cut the lemon in half. And as you cut, juice from the lemon just oozes out onto the cutting board. Now pick up one half of the lemon, hold it to your nose, and breathe in the fresh, pure scent of lemon. Now, most, if not all of us, will notice saliva starting to form in the back of our mouth,
Mm-hmm.
even if we don't particularly like the scent of lemon. So now just set the lemon down on the cutting board and step back. Probably feel like you want to take a big swallow. And take another deep breath and just open your eyes. Now, we all know there was no kitchen counter, no lemon, no cutting board, no knife. And if we had our audience with us, I would ask how many, though, started to feel saliva forming in the back of your mouth. Almost all, if not all, in the audience would raise their hand. And the point in doing that is simply to show the power of the subconscious mind. None of those things existed in our conscious mind, but our subconscious mind was so powerful that it created a physical response. So why can't our subconscious mind support us in healing our physical body?
Of course.
It just is so very powerful.
And that was a little mini hypnosis session. I mean, it's
Sort of, yeah.
it's in a way. So, and I guess the point is that there's no danger here. That there's no. I think we're oftentimes, because of our condition, because of television, because of et cetera, especially those of us that been on the planet for a number of years, we're not necessarily open to, or we're afraid of what we might find out. Well, you already know. It's just you're hiding it. You're trying to protect yourself from it, et cetera, and just as you said, there's so many things that we, throughout our entire lives, but especially as children and adolescents, that we set these beliefs, we set these frames of how things are in order to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a point where you get to take a look at, is it serving you, or is it hindering you? That this 8-year-old or 12-year-old or whatever, and those of us who've had had tough times, and maybe there's abuse, maybe there's unfortunate events and traumas that we've had to work through. We build these boxes that within our subconscious, and I'm just thrilled that it's becoming more acceptable and more mainstream, that people can take a look at what and get access to what's actually going on underneath the surface, and how that's running our lives versus we literally have the ability to choose whoever we want to be.
Right. And you bring up a good point about there being possibly trauma, abuse in the past, and people can be afraid of, they don't want to think about that. They don't. And I make it very clear to people that our intent is not to relive that experience, but to simply visit it quickly and gain whatever knowledge we need. And we've both been using the word belief, and find out, because of that, what belief did we form, and do we need to continue believing that? So that's another thing I like people to know, is that we're not talking about going back and reliving an experience that was traumatic or painful. We'll touch on it briefly, but just to get information, not to relive it.
Yes, and the information is, and I think I went through another transformational program that talked about the story that we write, and in that we form beliefs based on the story that we tell ourselves about whatever the event was, or et cetera. And the reality is that the event is whatever the event was, and then we wrote a story about it, because that's what we do. That's what our minds do.
Mm-hmm.
And is that story serving us? Because that story maybe has caused the formation of a belief, again, as you just indicated, and that belief may not be serving us anymore.
Right.
So the ability to let that go. But really, all of this is going to lead into the next question that I want to have to do with, is that it is transformational, and transformational in my mind is it's one way one moment, then it's another way the next moment, because you've had a breakthrough. And in doing so, before I ask you, is hypnosis really a kind of a quick fix, or do you need a lot of sessions? But before you answer that, I wanted to talk about something else that you had mentioned, which was, I often ask, who or what inspires you? And your answer was seeing people experience life-changing transformation. And that really hit home for me because our program with Video Socials was designed to be a transformational program. And what it does, or what we do with Video Socials, is that people want to get videos out there for marketing purposes. They want to get they want to get branded. They want to have the community around them become aware of them, and hopefully get some business from sharing information, knowledge, etc. Via video. And frankly, most people, unless you've been trained in it, have no idea where to start, how to do it. And we have all of these things in our lives. We may not like to be photographed. We may not like to be on camera. We may be nervous about that. Public speaking is, it's like the second largest fear that there is. And oh my gosh, I'm going to be on YouTube. Right. So we basically realized that, you're not going to do that on your own. You're not going to overcome that on your own. And that you're only going to overcome it by practicing in a safe space.
Sure.
Where you can do that. And so we create that safe space, and it's called a Video Socials meeting. And typically 5 to 10 people will get together, and we'll have a meeting, and we'll take turns recording our 2 or 3 minute videos. And we just practice, and we learn from each other, and we give each other support, and we give each other encouragement, and we point out what's working, and we acknowledge what's working, and we also make suggestions for things that might work a little better for the next time around. What happens is, with some work and with some practice, people transform themselves into being YouTubers.
Yeah.
And that never thought that that was even a possibility, right? They just knew I've got to get some videos out there for my business. I got to get some, for my practice.
And then on the other hand, some people, it's like they've been doing it all their life. It just seems to come naturally to them.
And I often say, look, if you were regularly giving recitals of any kind, or performing as a child, whether that be sports or arts or whatever the case may be, you're far more likely to be more in that outgoing mode, and for it to become much more natural. But we have members that came to us who are on the global speaking circuit, and just were fantastic on stage, but had no idea how to transfer those skills into video. And then we've had others that have never been on camera in their lives, and everything in between. And we all learn from each other, and we all practice together, and we all give each other that support and feedback. And it is transformational. I don't know of anyone that has joined the program that wouldn't say that it has transformed them, and not only transformed them from the perspective of being able to be on camera and being able to communicate in that means, but it has transformed how they've looked at their own business and how they've decided to communicate and choose to communicate the value that they bring and how they work. So we'd love to have you as a guest. There's no cost, there's no obligation. Just go to videosocials.net and click the guest tab at the top of the screen. It's a judgment-free zone, and you will. It's the kind of thing that you really can't understand how it works until you experience it. A little bit like hypnosis.
That's something that people can do. Anybody can participate.
Absolutely. So please come as a guest, and we'd love to meet. Again, there's no cost, no obligation, and nobody's going to twist your arm. But I think most of us, if you want to be on video, if you want to be on YouTube, you want to have videos for your website, you want to have videos for social media, and you just don't know where to start, or you've got anxiety about it, it's a great place not only to start, but to really hone your skills, even if you are already an accomplished speaker and presenter. So
Sounds like it.
all that being said, back to my question that I started with is, and I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you. Is it a quick fix, or is it going to take a lot of sessions?
No, I really appreciate you bringing that up because it's unfair for people to have expectations that are not met. So it does not take a lot of sessions, but I do tell people that change can take place immediately. It can happen that way. It can also take place gradually.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it can also take place retroactively. What I do is create a personalized recording for people, and that installs the new beliefs, the new understandings. And I ask them to commit to listening to it every day for 21 days, at least 21 days. Most people continue listening, maybe not every day, but they get a lot from it. And the thing is, there are a couple of things about the mind, the subconscious mind. It loves repetition and it loves familiarity. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's how habits get formed. And you're talking about practicing. Take a sports figure, a sports champion. I mean, how many times I can't quote specific numbers, but talking about how many baskets Michael Jordan has made and how many thousands he hasn't. And it's practice, it's repetition. And eventually, sometimes immediately, but usually eventually and retroactively, the subconscious mind kicks in. I've had people, not very often, usually people either get an immediate response or a gradual change. But people have gone through the 21 days and said, well, I really enjoy listening to the recording, but I haven't noticed a dramatic change. And then suddenly, one day, it almost seems immediate. So I definitely want people to know that it doesn't always happen one way. We have no way of predicting that. But what we can do is just do everything to ensure that healing, to ensure that change, and not to work too hard at it. That's another thing. Just to be very relaxed, and if it's a problem that someone's dealt with for many years, one of the goals is to make it a non-issue. The more we focus on something, that's another form of practice. If we think about an issue, we think about a problem constantly, and I've got to fix this, I've got to take care of it. Well, we're giving it prominence in our subconscious and conscious mind. So I like to encourage people to relax, just be with the process, let it happen, and that's how it will most effectively and most quickly transform.
Absolutely. Like I said, we could literally go on.
Yeah, we could.
Go on and on. But I think you've answered quite a bit of this. But what should people expect from working with you? Obviously, you've said that you're going to create this recording, but how do sessions typically work, and what would people expect when they're working?
Okay. Well, generally speaking, the first session, if it is a long-standing issue, the first session is maybe I tell them to allow a couple of hours. Sometimes it doesn't take that long, but on rare occasions, it's been a little bit more than 2 hours. But I ask them to allow 2 hours. And prior to that, I've gotten an intake form from them. We've had a conversation. So I have an idea of what we're dealing with. But that first in-depth session is a couple of hours. And then from that, I create the personalized recording. And they receive that via email, sometimes text, but always via email, so they can save it, listen to it however it's easiest for them. And then I do ask for that commitment to listen to the recording every day or every night. Now, a lot of people listen to the recording as they're going to sleep at night. And I tell them that's a great time to listen. They're concerned they're going to fall asleep. which is wonderful because that is another time when the conscious mind is reaching a different level of awareness and is really open to receive information. So listening as one is going to sleep is a perfect time to do that. I have a couple of different approaches that I offer to people, but most often they choose a program where they get that recording, and then we schedule at least 3 additional sessions, and we decide how those are going to be spaced out. I like to touch base with people a week after they've started listening to the recording, and just kind of see how things are going. And often they will report an immediate change. But then after that, we decide together when we'll have those other sessions. And what also often happens is, let's say somebody comes to me and they've got 4 or 5 different issues that they really want to deal with. We're not going to deal with all those in one session or one recording. There could be a little bit of overlap, but there needs to be a focus on one issue. And when that one issue has some resolution, often the others are maybe not fully resolved, but lessened. But if there is one of those other situations, we then proceed to do the same process for an additional issue.
And Karen, I would love to continue, but we are going to have to finish up. And
I see that.
I just wanted to say thank you, and that to remind people. So it's KarenRossNow.com and Karen Ross Now on numerous social media platforms. You can look up Karen Ross Now on most of the social media platforms. We'll have links below to all of that, or connected with that. And this video interview podcast is also going out on all the audio podcasting platforms and all the social media platforms as well.
Great. Can I throw in just one thing real quick?
Course. Yeah.
I have had people ask, do you work with kids? Do you work with teenagers? And I do. And young kids especially, their subconscious is wide open, ready to receive. So children and teenagers are wonderful at this. So if you've got a student that wants to do better, whether it's in sports or their academic work, we can do some pretty impressive work in that direction. And kids love it. They love it. They're excited about the idea of learning more about their mind. So just like to make that point.
Thank you so much, because I think it's foundational for them, right? Especially if they can learn the process, and they can learn that they have a choice in what they believe early on.
Absolutely.
How much more of an open and how much more possibility exists for them.
For sure.
Karen, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Me too. Thank you.
And stay tuned, folks, and please do subscribe.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major podcast platforms.